Marcus Garvey was an iconic Pan-African activist born in Jamaica on August 17, 1887. This freedom fighter successfully liberated millions of psychologically enslaved Africans throughout the diaspora from mental captivity, as Bob Marley would put it, as well as the oppressive system of capitalism. In one of his speeches, Martin Luther King referred to Garvey as the first man of color to lead and develop a mass movement. He was the first man on a mass scale and level to give millions of Negroes a sense of dignity and destiny and make the Negro feel he was somebody.
I think that people embody Garvey's ideas by educating themselves about their own history and by embracing their ties to the African continent and cultures. I definitely think that Garvey's extreme views of having one Negro nation would not be accepted well today, just as they weren't accepted by all Black people in his time. African and Black people in America and the Caribbean have all had very different life experiences, and even though they may share a lot in history and culture and beliefs, it really wouldn't be practical to expect them all to unite into one Negro life.
Well, I think, especially amongst our youth, I don't know if they would necessarily agree with the idea of forming a completely separate union in order to combat the ongoing discrimination and oppression. But I think we do still appreciate and value the idea of unity within the Black community. Although we might make a point to distinguish between our more recent ancestry, whether that be directly from Africa or from the Caribbean or South America or America, there is still an underlying sense of unity, not only because of the color of our skin, but because there are so many common threads that run through our cultures and history.
I believe that as a people we can attribute our aspirations to self-determination and liberation to the legacies of Marcus Garvey and political thinkers and idealists like him.
So I think there are definitely elements of Marcus Garvey's message that still apply or resonate today, in the sense that what he envisioned kind of serves as a foundation for some of the things that we fight for now to kind of better the African diaspora at large. While we're not necessarily collecting the entire diaspora and preparing to return to Africa literally, we're still seeking to kind of build a sense of identity, and that right there is kind of a remaining element of the spirit of the Back to Africa movement. And a lot of the focus today, I think especially among students, is to kind of challenge the system and try to change that systemic nature of oppression. And that's what I kind of feel was the basis of his message, is justice, and bringing to light the injustices that Africans, or rather people of African descent, and kind of bettering our community situation in the name of justice.
I believe we can attribute our sense of self, our larger self-awareness to the legacy of Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey's Back to Africa movement is still alive today, and you can see it in fashion. Today, women are going around wearing their hair natural or with braids, and are very proud of these natural-looking styles. There's also use of African themed pattern in our clothing.
I believe that one way in which Marcus Garvey lives on today is through students nowadays trying to not go back to Africa, but to discover where their African roots are. I think that knowing that there have been successful Black people in the past, and knowing that Black people have contributed to great areas of America's history, really gives Black people, a sense of pride in their own culture, and not just in their African culture, but in their American culture. I used to see Black History Month as another method of subjection, but the longer that I've been in the States, the more that I see the necessity for a month that recognizes people who would not normally be in the history books, and who people would not normally consider as Black or be able to look up to, because their race is not mentioned.
Some of Marcus Garvey's ideals are definitely still in effect today. For example, cannabis use, but strictly for religious reasons, of course. Marcus Garvey said, "Liberate the minds of men, and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men." This is the perfect example of the survival of his message in modern society, because what else are we at Stanford for if not to liberate our minds?